Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstott, and it's so good to see you here on this Tuesday afternoon. I want to get to a story that we've been following here in our newsroom, and it involves a teenager now facing charges after a rollover crash in Fayette. So let's get into it. This was a 17-year-old that deputies arrested, and you're taking a look at video from this chase. Speeds reached over 100 miles per hour, and this teen, 17-year-old Taylor Simpson, is now facing charges. Police say he was unlicensed and driving in a stolen vehicle. The high-speed pursuit ended in a rollover crash, and we have learned that that suspect survived without injury, which is really just pretty incredible. He's in jail without bond on charges of felony fleeing, eluding, and theft by receiving stolen property. So this is something we're going to keep an eye on as it progresses. In the meantime, I want to keep you updated on another story we're following. Snapfinger Elementary School is dealing with an unexpected loss of running water. So as a result, they've had to relocate classes for the day. So let's get out to Ray Urena for an update as to where things stand. Ray, great to see you. Can you let us know what the latest is as of now?
Well, Ariel, this morning, the school's interim principal sent out a letter to parents. Hang on one second. So I'm hearing you a little bit, Ariel, so I'm going to take out my earpiece real quick, so I'm hearing you talk right now. But in a letter to parents this morning, the school's interim president told, principal told the parents that the kids were moved for their safety, for their comfort, and just so their learning was not interrupted due to that unexpected loss of water in the building. Now, I just want to get to some video that we shot earlier today, some Skyfox drone video that showed multiple school buses leaving the school and with full of children. And this school is located near Decatur. Interim Principal Karen Stansel says pre-K through second graders were moved through Columbia Elementary School. Third through fifth graders were taken to Columbia High School. Stansel called this, quote, an unexpected facilities issue that involved a loss of running water in the building. At this moment, we don't know exactly what that issue is. And this morning, we also saw a plumbing crew working on what appears to be a valve that's located in front of the school. Now, just moments ago, we were able to talk to Deborah Jones. She is the president of the Organization of DeKalb Educators, which represents a lot of the teachers and employees in schools like this one behind me. Here's what she had to say about this incident.
Because at the end of the day, things don't just happen. It just happens and nobody takes responsibility. Somebody has to take responsibility. And for me, it's the school district because the children went into the school building. Now, if I came to my office and the water wasn't working, then the people that own this building, is their responsibility.
And of course, the district officials tell us that all the students who were moved for the day are now being brought back to Snapfinger Elementary School for their regular dismissal. And officials are going to keep monitoring to see and what they can do to resolve this situation. And all students, like I said, this was their first day back to class after all this winter weather and low temperatures over the weekend, Ariel. So coming back to school after all that the North Georgia and all Northeast Georgia went through with all the winter weather, coming back and then not having any water. Deborah Jones also tells me that has an effect on their learning today.
Ray, thanks so much for the update, letting us know where things stand at this point. We'll just keep an eye on things and see when they're able to get it fixed. As you may have mentioned it, and I just want to revisit it again really quickly, do they know how the pipe burst, where this happened, or if that was the issue?
School officials have not directly confirmed that it is a pipe burst. We've been asking that question to them, but they have not gotten back to us as far as that's concerned. We've also reached out to several other officials in DeKalb County, such as the fire department, the CEO's office. We have not heard back from them yet. So as of right now, they're just calling this an unexpected facilities issue, but they haven't told us exactly whether that was a pipe burst, whether there's no water pressure going into the building. We just don't know that answer right now.
so much for that clarification and making sense of it. I really appreciate it. I'll let you get back to information gathering, and we'll check in with you as the afternoon progresses. Guys, let's move on to some other headlines we're following here in the newsroom. I want to let you know about a power outage that affected a lot of people in Midtown, and this was because of an underground fire. It happened last night, and you can see crews as they worked last night to try to rectify the problem. An underground fire caused a transformer to blow, and it left thousands in the Midtown area of Atlanta without power. We know over 2,000 customers were powerless, and that was according to Georgia Power's outage map. Officials are still trying to figure out how the fire started, ultimately causing that transformer to blow, but we'll keep you updated if we find out anything new. As to the area where this happened, it was at 11th Street and Crescent Avenue, so that underground electrical fire affected that area. As we continue here, we're going to check in with our Angelique Proctor in just a little bit about ICE issues in College Park. I know she's working to keep us updated as to where things stand there. A lot of different places in our community is working to still dig out from the ice storm over the weekend. And while things are mostly normal here in Metro Atlanta, other places are still facing some of those cleanup conditions days later. So we're going to keep you updated on this situation. In the meantime, I want to tell you what Georgia Power is doing, because they're asking for patience as roughly 10,000 customers are still without power. We know they're still working to restore power to thousands of customers due to these outages across North Georgia. They've already restored electricity to more than 200,000 customers, which is really just incredible when you think about the scope of what this ice storm brought. Roughly 10,000 customers are still without power. 80% of those outages are located in Northeast Georgia. Now, most residents in the hardest hit areas should have their power restored within the next 2 days. That is according to Georgia Power. They say they're working hard to try to get that restored. But if you're someone who is affected by this and you're streaming with us now and you're like, hey, when am I going to get my power back? Georgia Power does estimate within the next 2 days. And speaking of hard hit areas, Habersham County was actually one of the areas really affected by Winter Storm Firm. We know that thousands of people are still cleaning up, and the ice storm knocked down about 1,000 trees and left thousands in that county without power there in North Georgia. Freezing rain and high winds pounded the county, toppling trees, tearing down power lines, and leaving many roads impassable. Thousands of people without power. Officials say ice and winds toppled as many as 1,000 trees there around the county. So again, like I said, this has just been an ongoing situation as officials are working to try to clean things up. But speaking of cleanup, in College Park, officials are still working to try to clean up the ice and issues there. So let's get out to Angelique Proctor to get the latest in College Park. Angelique, can you tell us what College Park is facing this afternoon?
Well, good afternoon to you, Ariel. We're actually talking about federal ICE agents here in College Park. We've been speaking to the mayor and trying to talk to a couple of city council people to find out what is exactly going on. The mayor says it's very important to be open and honest with people. She does not want to get people fearful or upset unnecessarily, but at this time she says she really is not getting any direction from the federal government. So let's go now to the video. Mayor Bianca Motley Broom talked with us today, and she says basically she started getting calls over the weekend, or really a little bit before the weekend, of citizens who said that they were spotting U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents here in the community of College Park. Many of them said that those agents were in the Georgia International Convention Center area, but the mayor says she wants to be clear the city of College Park has really not been contacted by federal immigration and customs agents about any operation in this community. Let's take a listen.
The calls that I've received have come in over the last several days, and people have been concerned that they've been perhaps seeing ICE in the community, but at this point I don't have anything verified. I would welcome communication with ICE at this point, because we are hearing rumors, but we don't have anything actually confirmed. So from our perspective, for the safety of our community, we would want to know if they are here definitively. My police chief has not received any communication thus far as I'm aware, and I spoke with her this morning. So communication is paramount, because if we are going to have any sort of relationship, we've got to be talking with one another. And if my residents are seeing things that they don't know what's going on and the like, it's concerning for everyone.
So while the mayor is very cautious in her wording of what's going on here, at least 2 city council members here in College Park are speaking very definitively that federal agents are in fact here in College Park. Dr. Jamil McKenzie, who is the Ward 1 person, elected city council person, I talked with her today. She tells me that she shared a video with her constituents over the weekend because she was getting so many calls. I want you to take a listen to it, because at this time she's actually asking residents to carry identification of their legal status with them at all times as they go about their daily activities.
They have not contacted us, nor have they been in contact. We have actually put out messages and had communication with our Congresswoman's office on today. They are not required to let anyone know when they're coming, but we have several reports of them being here in the city, even being set up within our city. However, there are no reports at this moment of them targeting any of our residents in the city of College Park. And as a city, we do remain committed to transparency and ensuring the safety and the well-being of all of those who live in and visit our city. So we do not have any reports at this point of having our residents targeted, but I am strongly, and the city is strongly, we're strongly encouraging all residents, if you're out and about, to carry proper identification and documentation of your legal status just in the event that you are pulled over. So make sure that you have something that shows that you're a U.S. citizen when you're going out. This is a sound practice for travel, employment, and any type of interactions with law enforcement. And most importantly, if you are approached by an ICE officer, please cooperate with that agency.
And so the second council person is actually the Vice Mayor, Joe Karn. Joe Karn called into the Concerned Black Clergy meeting on yesterday, saying that he too was familiar with ICE being in this community, and he went as far as to say that they were renting space. We will have much more on his comments later on, but clearly there is a lot of concern in this community about what is happening here, but no direct information from ICE to say if they have set up shop here or not. But a lot of people claim to have seen them, claim to have seen vehicles, and are very, very concerned. No doubt, everybody wants a safe community. That's the one thing that the mayor stressed to me today. We want to keep this community safe, and so if they are here, we need to know.
Angelique, thank you so much for clarifying and explaining what the situation there is in College Park. I know a lot of people in communities here across our state are asking those same questions, trying to understand how this affects their lives. So thank you for making sense of it, letting us know what leaders there are doing to try to understand how, from a local level, they might be affected. I'm sure we'll stay tuned to you as we get any new information. So I appreciate your time and your news gathering today. Thank you so much. I'll let you get back to it, Angelique. Guys, we're going to move on here because as Angelique was speaking about the ongoing situation here locally, I want to tell you a little bit more about what some protesters here in Atlanta were doing yesterday and even today. We know that walkouts are happening here at schools today because of ICE's presence, and protesters in Atlanta yesterday demonstrated in Midtown on the 17th Street Bridge near Atlantic Station in downtown Atlanta. and they were protesting against ICE. You can see some of the video we were able to capture there. But we also know that these protesters are pressuring Georgia Senator John Ossoff to block ICE funding. They want to make sure that federal spending does not extend to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. So now Senators John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are blocking a $10 billion in ICE funding until they say civil liberties protections are added. This is something that we're going to continue to follow because, as you know, this is going to tie in closely to the status of federal government shutdown and what that could look like. We're going to talk more about that here coming up because I want to talk about the latest in Minneapolis. We do know that some immigration agents are expected to leave Minneapolis, including Border Commander Gregory Bavino. This comes as the threat of a government shutdown isn't going away, and now funding for immigrations and Border Patrol agencies is under fire. One of the things that we're taking a look at with this situation is that the decision to scale back in operations in Minnesota comes after phone calls yesterday with President Trump, the governor of Minnesota, and the mayor of Minneapolis. There were weeks of sometimes violent protests, aggressive crackdowns on illegal immigrants, and the shooting deaths of 2 protesters. We saw some pressure from some Republicans and even gun rights groups like the NRA. And after this, we know that President Trump has voiced he has wanted, through his White House press secretary, he has wanted the chaos to stop. The White House confirmed that the president spoke on the phone with Minnesota's governor and Minneapolis's mayor, and the president is now willing to back off if he gets more cooperation on rounding up illegal immigrants accused of other crimes. This is according to the White House. Border Czar Tom Homan is now being sent to Minnesota to take over federal efforts there. It's not clear if federal or if Minnesota officials are going to reverse any of their sanctuary city policies. And in the meantime, more Democrats are willing to shut down the federal government this week if changes are not made to the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. Any changes to the DHS funding bill means Congress is likely to miss the Friday funding deadline. So this week, another government shutdown looms. We're likely to learn a lot more about this situation today from President Trump. He is going to be speaking in Iowa this afternoon. We know right now some of his supporters have rallied in Iowa, and they are gathered waiting for him to come step to the podium. You can see they're live in Iowa as many supporters wait for the president to come address them. President Trump has mentioned he's going to be doing these economic appearances in cities here across the United States, talking about his economic and domestic policy goals. But in the meantime, let's listen to what the White House press secretary had to say about calls between the president and Minnesota officials.
Why President Trump spoke with Governor Walz directly this morning. President Trump's hope and wish and demand for the resistance and chaos to end today.
So we're going to continue to keep you updated as we learn any new information from the White House and as the situation in Minneapolis progresses. But let's move to talk about some international news because the president's tariff threats have heated up once again. And we're talking about the unfolding situation with Canada. President Trump has threatened 100% tariffs on Canada if they follow through with a proposed trade deal with China. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says he's concerned about the United States as a partner. He says that this would not be a full trade agreement with China. President Trump had claimed that China and Canada are close to a free trade agreement, but Canada's Prime Minister says that's simply not true. He said that China and Canada were trying to rectify some issues developed in the last couple of years, and he says that this would not constitute a full trade agreement. So that was his perspective. But the United States has been pushing China out of Venezuela with their recent arrest of Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro. And now the Chinese are trying to make moves into Canada. So we know that the Canadian Prime Minister was trying to settle some of those disputes. And this is apparently what angered President Trump. And he says that he's concerned that Canada would be on a greater footing with China. In a social media post, President Trump said, quote, if Governor Carney thinks he's going to make Canada a drop-off port for China to send goods and products into the United States. He is sorely mistaken. China will eat Canada alive and completely devour it, including the destruction of their businesses, social fabric, and general way of life. So that is the president's post there. President Trump, again, has threatened 100% tariffs on Canadian goods, something that we're going to watch closely, and Canada, no doubt, is as well. But it's not just Canada. We're also seeing tariffs threats heat up for other countries. South Korea is now facing tariff threats from the White House. A day after threatening Canada with those 100% tariffs, President Trump announced he's raising tariffs on South Korea to 25%. He wrote on social media that South Korea's legislature is not living up to its deal with the United States. Last year, Seoul agreed to invest $350 billion in the United States in exchange for tariff relief. Well, lawmakers in South Korea still have to approve this deal, and the White House says they're dragging their feet on those investments here in the United States. In Europe, the EU signed a major new free trade deal with India, which is actually going to enable both economies to pivot away from trade here with the United States. Some officials directly addressed the tensions about this trade war with the signing ceremony, and EU leaders said that by combining the strength of the European Union and India, they reduce strategic dependencies at a time when trade is becoming increasingly weaponized. So this is something that the world is watching, and the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement is actually up for review this year. President Trump says he might not renew it without significant changes. So this is absolutely something we're going to continue to keep updated on for you guys. In the meantime, coming up, we're going to get some other headlines for you. I want to let you know where we stand with a hearing that unfolded today on Capitol Hill about a collision that happened just about a year ago between a U.S. Army helicopter and an American Airlines flight. Absolutely horrific situation, and now we're learning a little bit more about how that happened. Coming up next. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for being here with us. It is great to see you. And I want to tell you about something that unfolded on Capitol Hill today, because the National Transportation Safety Board has been holding a public meeting for the first time to determine the probable cause between last year's deadly crash with a U.S. Army helicopter and an American Airlines plane. You remember this was an absolutely horrific situation about a year ago, last January, that unfolded near the Reagan National Airport there in D.C. 67 people died. It was the deadliest plane crash in the country in more than 2 decades. And the NTSB actually says that their hearts go out to the families, as you might imagine. They offered condolences to the families of the victims today. But they also said the incident was the result of systemic issues, and it was not caused by any one organization or person. So let's listen to what some of the board members had to say today on Capitol Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Today is a heavy day, and I do not think that is lost on any of us. This has been an incredibly difficult year for our agency and our investigators, the first responders to this accident, and the aviation community as a whole, as we have mourned the loss of 67 lives nearly 1 year ago from an accident and tragedy that never, ever should have happened.
It will not be an easy day. I think, as Mike just said, there is no singular person to blame for this. These were systemic issues across multiple organizations, and I think, as you'll see, we will place a lot of the information that you're going to hear on those responsible organizations and hopefully make recommendations so that this never happens again.
You are in our daily prayers. I pray for you every single day. And on behalf of everyone at the NTSB, our entire agency, please accept our heartfelt condolences and our deepest, deepest sympathies.
Well, everyone on both aircraft, 64 people on the plane and 3 in the helicopter were killed in this incident. So as this hearing unfolds today, we hope to get a better understanding of what those systemic failures were that you heard board members talking about, what ultimately led to this tragic situation unfolding. But as we learn those details, we'll let you know right here on Fox Local. I want to let you know about some other news that we're following, because the actor who starred in The Blind Side has been hospitalized, and he's actually on life support, facing a really heartbreaking situation. This is Quentin Aaron, and he's been known best for his role in The Blind Side, but he's in an Atlanta hospital right now fighting for his life. And a fundraising page for Quentin Aaron actually says he's battling a severe blood infection. Family members are asking for donations to support his extensive medical bills. At this point, we're trying to get a better understanding for how he's doing at this point. But we do know that the hospitalization comes a month after he actually shared a dramatic 200-pound weight loss on his Instagram account. So we'll keep you updated as this unfolds. Another situation unfolding in West Midtown involves the closure of another restaurant. You know that West Midtown has really been affected by a lot of closures, and now Torchy's Tacos is shutting down their Atlanta location amid a wave of closures. They're closing on February 4th, so you have a little time to visit them if this is one of your favorite spots to go. But it's the chain's only location here in Georgia. So Torchy's Tacos, the only one in Georgia, is going to be closing. And it's part of a broader nationwide portfolio review, according to the restaurant chain. They say that they're trying to reorient their business plans. So we'll keep you updated as this unfolds. But talking about another situation unfolding here in Atlanta, dozens of CDC databases are not being updated, and that's according to researchers who've been monitoring this. A report actually has found that half of the databases that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention uses and used to update consistently have been paused with no notice. At the start of 2025, the CDC regularly maintained 82 different databases, updating them at least every month. By the end end of October, 38 databases were not updated at all, and 34 had no new entries for the past 6 months. 90% of these paused databases were related to vaccinations, and these findings were published in the journal Annals of Internal Medicine. So keeping you updated on where that stands. Coming up, you guys, I want to get a check of how you can work to protect your plants in these colder temperatures. If a lot of you are working to rectify a very droopy plant, we're going to check in with our Chris Rosenthal on how you can bounce back from these really cold temperatures. That's coming up next. Hello, everyone. How's it going? We're going to talk about some stories today that I think many of you are probably wondering after this winter storm Fern. Hundreds of thousands are still without power across the country. It was absolutely a doozy, and a lot of places were really hard hit, especially in the South, where they don't always have the infrastructure to deal with this. So let's talk about it. The snow's gone, but power outages are still affecting thousands of people across the South. Airlines are also recovering from cancellations and delays. Today, it's really cold. You have stepped outside and no doubt felt these frigid temperatures. Millions of Americans have dug out from the weekend's major winter storm, and in some places they're still working to do this. More than 24 people were actually killed in this winter storm before the system moved to the East Coast. And one thing that a lot of leaders across the nation are urging, both in the South and the Northeast, is to watch out for the ice as the cold temperatures melt a lot of the snow, and of course other areas that got freezing rain and sleet. Across the South, we know that this is an area really hard affected. That hundreds of thousands of people are still without power right now. Freezing rain snapped tree limbs and down some power lines. Utility crews are actually working around the clock to restore service, but road conditions have really been affecting recovery efforts in places like Louisiana and North Mississippi. In the Northeast, plows are still working to take care of a lot of snow. Boston, get a load of this, received more than 20 inches of snow, where Philadelphia saw almost 10, the most snow Philadelphia has seen in a decade. I know a lot of us have seen the videos on social media of people playing in the snow in Philadelphia because people haven't seen that much in quite some time. The travel headaches do continue, though. More than 2,500 flights were already delayed or canceled early Tuesday. The FAA says service should be back to normal by tomorrow. So this is a situation that we're going to continue to monitor. Forecasters say another winter storm could hit parts of the East Coast this weekend. So that is something that we're going to continue to keep you updated on. But speaking of all this winter weather and the storm and how things are faring, if you have some plants, no doubt some of them might be really droopy or just not feeling it with these frigid temperatures. So Chris Rosenthal joins us live from Moon Nursery to talk about how to care for plants in the cold. Chris, it is great to see you. What are they recommending?
Yeah, it's good to see you too, and the sun's coming out, so it's getting a little nicer, but you know, we have a lot of still cold days ahead of us. So yeah, I'm here at Moon Valley Nurseries, and I have Jessica joining me, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the plants and what we can do with them. But first of all, what happens to plants in this cold weather?
Yeah, so these plants basically are already going dormant for the season. So they're taking all the energy that they have from up top, and they're taking all the sugars and they're pulling it into their root system. So whenever we're getting ready for this winter and these ice storms, what we're going to do is really focus on the root system, where their energy is at. What we're going to do is get something like this moon juice. This is a root stimulant and a de-stressor. We're going to mix it with water, and then we're going to pour it into the ground. We're going to deep root water the whole tree. That's really going to help protect the roots in terms of it's going to be able to transfer the heat of the earth way better to the root system, and a few other positives in there. Amongst that, we're definitely going to also want to take an extra step and protect the base of the root with these pine straws. So what we did here, you see we have our pine needles. This is something I absolutely recommend that you do at home, and it's just going to keep the frost from actually settling onto the roots.
And you can use pine straw, or even have some leftover leaves in the fall as well, just something kind of like a blanket to insulate.
Yeah, that's exactly the concept there.
Yeah.
And you know, for your shrubbery, you're going to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So you really want to protect your shrubs. The pleasant thing about this is you can go a step further after you're done moon juicing your plants, deep root watering, and making sure they're nice and cozy, is you're going to get your frost cloth. Mm-hmm. This frost cloth is specifically made for protecting your plants in these types of situations. It's a breathable material that is going to keep the ice off your plants, because it's not the cold weather that's actually hurting your plants, it's the ice. Mm-hmm. So as you see, like, they've got very fine branches, and it just really doesn't like to have ice settle. So what we're going to do is actually take this frost cloth, and we're going to go ahead and cover them, and just keep it like that all throughout the night. In the daytime, you can go ahead and remove it.
And one of sort of the no-nos is plastic, huh?
Oh yeah, so plastic, if you're in a bind and that's all you have, mm-hmm. What you'll want to do is put a layer between the plant and the plastic, because the plastic is still going to burn your plant, mm-hmm. but it's going to be a little bit more helpful than nothing. But we typically don't like to use plastic because it's not a breathable material.
Do you want this on all day, or do you take it off, or how does that work?
Yeah, I like to take it off in the daytime. Yeah. It really just lets the sun warm up these plants, mm-hmm. and it allows them just to do their thing. And then if I know there's a frost that's going to come throughout the night, that's usually when the ice forms, we'll go ahead and make sure we have these covered before nighttime.
Pruning, what about that? Can I prune, or should I wait?
So that's a pretty big no-no for your winter care. You really want any kind of pruning to wait. You want to hold off until probably the end of February, when our temperatures are consistently above 40 degrees to 50 degrees at night. That way it's not really stressing the plant, because if you trim too early, it's going to send your plant into shock and potentially die.
So leave it alone for now, huh?
Yeah, just wait a little bit. I know it's super fun and exciting. You want to get rid of all the ugly parts off your plant, but definitely hold off for just a little bit more.
And you know, it's still winter time and spring is coming around the corner. Can I plant now?
Yeah, you know, we're actually the pioneers of planting in the wintertime and the summertime. It's a huge misconception that you cannot plant. Granted, for us, you know, we're still planting things today. We 100% container grow our trees, mm-hmm. and so they do have 100% of the root system. That's why they don't go in such a severe shock like other types of trees do, where you do have to be a little more careful. So if you got a plant where it's got its whole root system, go ahead, get them planted, moon juice it, so you get that de-stressor in there. Let let the plant know, hey, this is a great spot for you, and you honestly should have a lot of luck.
Sounds like the key there really is the roots, huh?
It really is. It's always about the roots.
Yeah, so there you go. There's, we still got some cold days ahead. We just had a cold snap, but there's still some things you can do to prep and get your plants ready and ready for the spring as well. So.
Chris, this has been really insightful. I'm curious, I think she was talking about it a little bit, but if I have a plant that's looking real droopy after these cold temperatures, is there a way to revive it? Do I just kind of need to wait it out and get it away from a drafty space? What can I really do to help?
Yeah, Jessica, I got a good question for you. So if we got a plant that is, coming out of this cold weather and it's kind of droopy and looking like it's, had some hard times, is there something we can do to revive those?
There is. So you definitely want to make sure you're not doing anything to the top of the plant, no trimming or any of that. But it's that moon juice that we're going to put before the freeze as well as after. It is a root stimulant and a de-stressor. You just want to make sure that you have your watering right, and we'll really just hold off. But the plant really should perk back up.
Gotcha. And no watering when it's freezing cold, huh?
Yeah, not in the middle of the freeze. This is going to be prep work before the freeze and after the freeze.
Yeah, because that water will just freeze in there, huh?
Yeah, and it's very tempting to do something in the middle of it. You kind of just got to let nature do its thing, and the plant will also, we've set it up for success, and we can also do some prep work afterwards to really help it get through it.
There you go. All about the prep and the after work.
Awesome. Chris, another question I thought of for you here real quick. She mentioned that it's a misconception and we can actually plant right now in the winter, which I didn't realize. What would she advise planting? What's okay to plant right now?
Okay, one other question for you. What other, during the wintertime, are there certain plants that you would advise planting now?
Oh, so your evergreens, absolutely. There are quite a few plants that really thrive very well, especially here in our Georgia environment, that'll do well. So like our arborvitaes, our hollies, Leland cypresses, and other trees like that do really well. Granted, it's also still really great time to plant some of your deciduous trees like your oaks, your maples, and other trees like that, because all of their energy is in the root system. And so when you go ahead and plant it, they're going to focus on rooting. And so when springtime comes, you're going to have all those big, beautiful blooms and all your beautiful growth.
There you go.
Thanks so much for getting my questions answered, and some of the audience here too who's rocking along with us on TikTok and YouTube. Chris, thanks so much. We're going to check back in with you at 3 here in just a little bit to see where things stand. Appreciate your time, and looking forward to talking more plant care. Guys, I have a really quick question for you as we continue here at 2 o'clock, and it is, are you deleting TikTok after the recent sale? Because a large number of people are actually deleting TikTok from their devices. The daily average of U.S. users deleting their TikTok app has reached nearly 150% over the past 5 days. The deletions come after TikTok actually announced last week it's formed a new joint venture to keep the app alive here in the United States. It's now under American leadership and mostly American-owned companies. But judging from social media comments, a lot of TikTok users seem to be skeptical of the updated privacy policy that comes with this new joint venture. They also complain about data collection or racial or ethnic origin data collection. A lot of users say they're not sure whether or not this data collection is new, but they feel like their algorithms have changed and they're not seeing some of the content they used to see. They feel like it's different. They're also complaining about outages and upload fails with the app, and they haven't gotten any communication from TikTok about what this new venture means for them. Some creators say they're going to leave the app and focus more on Instagram. So curious if you guys have noticed any changes or if you're feeling this as well. TikTok's active users have remained flat, so it could just be inactive users, a lot of them who are leaving as the app cleans things up. TikTok does say it has more than 180 million active users. So this is a situation that we'll continue to keep you updated on. But in the meantime, you guys, we're going to take it a little closer to home. We're going to be chatting with our Kelly Price about the latest as the Atlanta Falcons introduced a new head coach today and what that means for the team. That's next. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt here with Kelly Price. Kelly, great to be back with you. Falcons held a news conference today. They announced their new head coach. I mean, we already knew, but it was a formal introduction of sorts.
Right. 10 days after Kevin Stefanski was named the 20th head coach in franchise history, he was kind of brought out to the media. You see him there with his family. His daughter had a really cute little outfit on. She had like a bow. I need more information about that situation. But Stefanski gave us a lot of information about where he's at and this whole interview process. Matt Ryan, the president of football, not operations, that you see there, he was part of this obviously interview process, and we got some insight from him about why Stefanski is the choice, because I think a lot of Falcons fans were wondering why a guy that the Browns just fired is going to be our next head coach. So let's start there. 45-56 was his record, obviously, in Cleveland. That was one of the top questions on my mind as a reporter in this press conference. That's the question I asked him is, what did you learn from that situation? Because obviously, you were fired a couple of weeks ago, and here you are being introduced here in Atlanta. Here's part of what he had to say about what he's learned.
Career in this business, it's sometimes you have to navigate tough times, and I certainly have seen my tough times, and I feel like I'm a better coach on the other side of that. And I, like Matt mentioned, I want to learn from all those things. I hope that there's things that I learned on a day-to-day basis. I hope there's big picture things that I've learned and taken from that. So really excited about where I am, but I wouldn't change anything about the past. I've learned from all of my seasons in this game of football, if you will. Something I've told Matt, there's a quote I love where smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. And I think it's something that's important, as all of us understand. Some of those tough moments are going to make us better. I'm so excited about what we're doing at the Atlanta Falcons in 2026 and what we're going to be about.
Great. Yeah, I love it.
Well, that's pretty motivating.
Yeah, and this is a guy that's worked for 20 years in the NFL. He's been to a lot of different places, had a lot of different situations to learn from. But something else he said a lot was, hey, we're going to talk right now, and this press conference is about talking, but we actually need to do the work, which I think a lot of fans would appreciate that kind of mindset. He's not a guy that's going to win the press conference. He's not this I'm going to run through the wall for this guy publicly. From what we've heard from players and people who have worked with him in the past, he's not like a magic soundbite or someone that's going to light social media on fire with something viral that he says. But behind closed doors, in those meeting rooms, in really the rooms where it matters with players and staff, that is where he really shines and where he's really a big leader.
And I think at the end of the day, I mean, that's where you want the shine. You want someone who's going to put in the work, who's going to show up and set the example, and who sets an example that inspires other people to follow.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are just kind of tired with maybe the apathy or the complacency of where the team has been. And they want to see, they want to have a winning mindset, and they want to see the Falcons win.
Yeah, and just kind of to talk a little bit more about that, like Matt Ryan talked about, he kind of pulled back the curtain just a tiny bit on their interview process, because obviously they interviewed a bunch of people, and Stefanski was a guy on every NFL team's list. It wasn't just the Falcons who requested interviews with him. This is not just a Falcons decision. Yeah. Everyone across the league, he was a very desired candidate. But Matt Ryan said, we obviously did a lot of cross-referencing. We talked to people who have worked with him. We've talked to former players that have worked with him, and everything kept pointing to him as being our guy because of all the reasons that we just talked about.
So did they talk at all about player lineup or where things stand with maybe some coaching decisions? And, I think a lot of questions that people have had is with Michael Penix Jr.'s injuries, where does that leave us for the start of the season? Where is Kirk Cousins fitting into this? Curious.
I talked about my first question in the press conference. 1B was, what do you feel about Michael Penix Jr.? Because he is kind of there's mixed opinions about him across the league. Obviously, we know the former coach and GM were very much behind him, but that's because their jobs were also kind of attached to him. So what does a guy coming in with a fresh perspective feel about Michael Penix Jr.? He had some pretty interesting things to say about that.
Excited about the physical gifts. What's most important right now for Michael is to get healthy. He knows that, and we'll get to football here shortly, but he's attacking his rehab. I think you see a player on tape that can get through progressions, can layer the ball, can push the ball to all areas of the field. Obviously was very productive in college, has had some really, really, really good moments here in the pros. So I just see a young player that will continue to develop and continue to get better.
I mean, that is positive. Like, we obviously want him to get better, but to see that he thinks there's a player there who's going to continue to improve and improve the team in the game, that's what we want.
Right.
I'm curious what you felt the most interesting part of today's news conference was.
Yeah, the most kind of newsworthy situation is that he won't be calling plays. Actually, Tommy Rees, the offensive coordinator they announced a couple days, he is going to be the one calling plays. He actually called the plays for the Browns towards the end of the season. Coming out of their bye week, I believe it was week 10 for the Browns. They were scuffling. I think they were like 2-6. They just did a change there to see, hey, can we kind of get some different voice flowing, some different juice flowing? So Stefanski actually gave up play calling in Cleveland towards the end of his tenure there. He also did the year before to a different person. So this is a situation that he's done this before. He's given it to somebody else. It's still going to be his kind of offensive philosophy. He's still going to be doing the game planning side of things, but on the day of, game day, calling the plays, actually getting in that rhythm will be Tommy Rees, which was something we didn't know prior to today.
No, and I think it's important to understand who's making the decisions about different things, because then if people don't like it, they can know, hey, this is this is who's making the decision.
And Stefanski can certainly take those play calling duties back if he needs to.
Yes, as I would expect. I'm curious, we have this new kind of leadership structure within the Falcons. What did Matt Ryan have to say, if anything? Did he speak much during the news conference?
Yeah, he did. And like I said, he talked about kind of his point of view, obviously, on this whole process of being in these interviews. He obviously also talked about the fact that they still have a GM opening, and that's something they hope to fill soon, but obviously they haven't quite aligned with anyone quite yet to bring in that person, because that's the other kind of shoe that needs to drop in this leadership situation.
Yeah, that is interesting. Kelly, no doubt you're going to continue to keep us updated and keep us apprised of how things are going to move forward with the Falcons. I just think it's also, as kind of a final thought I have, one thing I think people don't always realize, and I know a lot of people do, but when these new coaches come, a lot of times they bring the people they work well with.
Right.
And if there are already people in an organization like the Falcons that they know and like, it makes the situation better. So sometimes, even though maybe a head coach or a GM are let go, they're looking strategically to understand who can work with the player or the roster of coaches we already have. Like news, it's kind of a small industry.
Yeah.
Everyone knows everyone.
Yeah. And he kind of is bringing some pieces from Cleveland that he worked well with, to your point, but also retaining Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator who did really great things with this defense, keeping some of those people in place. Like you said, a little mix of new and old. And that's kind of the question I asked him, like, why do you think that running back some of these pieces from Cleveland, where it didn't end up successful at the end of the day, why is that going to be different? And the difference is, there's a lot of differences. Let's just call it what it is. The Browns and Falcons are very different organizations. But he also said you succeed with the people that are around you, and that can be maybe a key in the turnaround.
That's very interesting. Kelly Price, thank you so much for keeping us up to date on this situation. I definitely appreciate it. And guys, we're going to get to some other news here real quick as Kelly continues to keep us updated on the Falcons. I want to let you know about this situation in case you haven't seen it. Ye, the rapper also formerly known as Kanye West, is apologizing for his past anti-Semitic remarks. He addressed those remarks in a full-page ad published in the Wall Street Journal actually yesterday. I'm curious if you've seen it or read it. He says he is, quote, not a Nazi or anti-Semite. He says his behavior was the result of a previously undiagnosed brain injury he suffered after a car accident 25 years ago. And he said this injury actually led to his bipolar diagnosis in 2016. He sparked major controversy in recent years for his offensive statements, such as declaring himself a Nazi. He now says he regrets his actions and is, quote, committed to full accountability, treatment, and a meaningful change. So that is something that we will continue to keep you updated on. You guys, I also want to go, let's switch gears here. I'm looking out over to my right, and as we know, President Trump is set to headline Iowa today, a rally, and Tom Haynes is joining us to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, we're seeing what's going on. So we're just going to take a look at it here as we get ready for the 3 p.m. hour. Tom, maybe this is something that we check out at 3 o'clock. President's going to be in Iowa, and we do know that President President Trump has kind of teased these economic policy stops throughout the United States. A lot of his critics have said he's doing too much with foreign policy, and they want to see him focus more here on the homeland.
Well, we'll be waiting to hear Ariel in this speech. Of course, all of this in the lead up to the 2026 November midterm elections, which are critical for the president and his administration. If they want to hold on to the House of Representatives, they've got to get out and tout their economic progress. It is forecast to be a strong year financially, 2026. It's just the president needs to be a better messenger at getting that out. We are going to wait to hear whether he addresses any of the situation in Minneapolis after conversations with both the governor and the mayor, governor of the state and the mayor of that city, and ways to move forward. We know he sent Tom Homan up there to sort of play out the situation on behalf of the administration and try to de-escalate the situation. So we will wait for the president, of course, bring you his remarks live once he steps up to that podium. Also going to check in with our team of reporters this afternoon. We have a disturbing story out of Coweta County this afternoon. Our Doug Evans is on a case where a man is under arrest for child exploitation charges. We're going to tell you about the circumstances leading up to that arrest. Doug is on deck here live, ready to join us here at the top of the 3 p.m. hour.
Wonderful. Looking forward to talking about it, Tom, here coming up at 3 o'clock. You guys, thanks for streaming here with us live at 2, and we'll have more for you coming up at 3.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. So happy you're with us this afternoon. If you're watching on our streaming app, Fox Local, on your mobile device or on your home television, or streaming us on YouTube at Fox 5 Atlanta, on TikTok, or on the radio, 107.9 HD2 FM. We're always on, and we're happy to be with you here this hour. We got a lot to get to this afternoon, a lot of live events happening, which we will take you to and bring you up to date on all the news that is relevant to what's happening with you and in your community. Speaking of, if you happen to live down in Coweta, we have a disturbing story for you, but one that is potentially good news because they have an alleged child predator off the streets. This is from a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which led to the arrest of a 21-year-old. Let's get out to Fox 5's Doug Evans on top of this story for us this afternoon. Doug?
Good afternoon, Tom. His name is Ryan Christopher Adams, and he's being held here without bond at the Coweta County Jail. It was on a traffic stop earlier this month that Coweta County deputies arrested him on the side of the road. It wasn't for a traffic violation. No, he was wanted on some pretty serious charges involving online activity involving children. And this all started, as Tom said, with a tip, and it happened last fall from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Here's what they're saying about it at the Coweta County Sheriff's Office this afternoon. They say that this all started in October of 2025 when they received this tip. They've been investigating it ever since. They discovered, they said, what they called egregious, particularly egregious videos on his mobile device. Also, multiple explicit videos involving children, they say. This all started with that investigation. It was conducted by the Coweta County Internet Crimes Against Children's Unit. They seized his phone. They say they'll be going through that, and they expect to file additional charges. They say that Adams works at a Metro Atlanta manufacturing plant that manufactures roofing supplies. For now, he's being held, as I said, here at the Coweta County Jail without bond. Tom?
Doug, the Coweta County law enforcement there is so good at, this is the kind of story that we unfortunately so often hear you reporting on, but it seems like they are really adept at, in conjunction with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, working in conjunction with one another to track down these kind of people who may be doing these kind of illicit activities online.
Yeah, Tom, they have this unit, the Internet Crimes Against Children's Unit here at the Coweta County Sheriff's Office. It's a unit that solely works on these type of cases. In many law enforcement agencies, they will have what are called ICAC units, but usually they're kind of rolled into the Criminal Investigation Division of any law enforcement agency. Here they have a dedicated person who deals with that. And Sheriff Lynn Wood would tell you it's because they take these crimes against children very, very seriously. And we have interviewed him in the past. And he says, these children are particularly vulnerable online. And that's why they feel it's very important to investigate these crimes as they come up. And as we've reported so often, these cases come to them from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C.
And just to recap real quick, they tracked Adams down not by knocking on the door of his house, but through a traffic stop. So he was pulled over and then arrested.
That's right. And Tom, it was probably a case in which after the investigation got rolling along, they took out warrants for his arrest. They then would put out a BOLO, a be on the lookout. And it was after that they spotted his vehicle and pulled him over and arrested him.
All right. Great work on the part of Coweta County authorities and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Doug Evans with the latest on that investigation and the arrest. Doug, thanks. Want to move on now, and as if the power outages from the winter storm weren't bad enough, an underground explosion caused a transformer to blow, this time in Midtown Atlanta, leaving over 2,000, upwards of 3,000 people were told without power, according to Georgia Power and the outage map that they provide online. Fire crews responded to the scene at 11th Street and Crescent Avenue just after 7 last night. Bystanders reported hearing an explosion, and another person said a nearby cover was blown off. So it was pretty intense. According to the outage map, about 2,700 customers in the area lost power. Thankfully, as of this morning, however, it seems like most of the people have their lights back on, and thankfully, no one was injured. A judge has denied bond today for an 18-year-old, Sarah Grace Patrick. She's a Carroll County teenager accused of killing her mother and stepfather in their home last year. Prosecutors argued that Patrick may pose an even greater flight risk than before, citing the seriousness of the charges, including malice murder, and the incentive to flee if released. Defense attorneys had asked the court to consider bond with strict conditions, including no contact with family members and no cell phone access, but the judge simply said that those restrictions were not adequate enough to reduce the risk of being a flight risk. Patrick's double murder trial, originally scheduled to begin this week, has now been postponed until August as the state finalizes a forensic report. Patrick was 17 at the time of the murders and is charged with malice murder, felony murder, and aggravated assault. Prosecutors allege she shot her mother, 41-year-old Kristen Brock, and stepfather, 45-year-old James Brock, multiple times while they slept inside their Carrollton home in February 2025. So bond denied for 18-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick. Well, if you haven't done so already, time to get out there. If you have any precious vegetation in your yard, or you're looking ahead to springtime, when things start to bloom once again and we kick out this bitterly cold weather, to protect your vegetation outside, pay attention to what's happening out in your yard. We have this beautifully sunny week, and it looks like it's going to be a halfway decent weekend. So let's get out to Chris Rosenthal at Moon Nurseries in Peachtree City. Chris, showing us what we can do to have a good green thumb.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cold this morning, but sun's coming up, and that's a good time to get out there and take some preps, because there's still, I know we just got past some cold, but there's still some cold days ahead of us. And I'm joined by Jessica here from Moon Valley Nurseries. Jessica, thank you for joining us. We've been talking plants here all day. First of all, just the science. What happens to a plant when it gets really, really cold?
Yeah, absolutely. So a plant is going to go dormant during the winter season. So they'll feel the temperature drop, and they'll take all the energy that they have up top, and they're going to start sending it down to the roots. It's why you get that color change in fall with all of the leaves turning red and orange. And so what we're going to focus on in the winter time is protecting where their energy is at, and that is the root system. So here with our shrubs, what we're going to do is we're going to deep root water them right before the freeze, and we're going to add something like our moon juice to it. This is a de-stressor and a root stimulant. So it's like the equivalent of taking vitamin C right before the flu season comes, really preparing your body for that traumatic event that's about to happen. And so we're going to go ahead, deep root water these guys, have the moon juice. We also highly recommend adding pine straw around the base, really taking an extra step to protect the roots. And because these shrubs are so small and they have fine branches, as you see here, we're going to want to cover them with a frost cloth. So we actually have this frost cloth right here. And this material is specifically made for these plants. It's a breathable material, not like plastic or a blanket or anything that you can find at home. This is specifically to allow these plants to breathe.
I'll help you here.
Yeah, thank you. And we're going to go ahead and we're just going to cover these guys. And so you'll definitely want to keep these covered throughout the night is the most important time, because that's when all the frost builds up. And you can go ahead and remove this whenever the sun peaks out and give them a little bit of warmth.
So you could take it off today, put it back on when it gets a little, colder overnight. We're talking when it's going to be about 32 degrees, that's when you need to worry?
Yes, yeah. Anytime that frost is actually going to build up, because it's not the cold weather that's hurting the plant, it's just the literal ice that forms on the plant.
You're talking about plastic. That's kind of a no-no. You could get away with it, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, if that's all you have in a pinch, absolutely use it. It's better than nothing, but you want to take a couple extra precautions. You're going to want to put a barrier between the plant and the plastic. So you probably want to put some pine straw on top of the plant, or you'll take a burlap and put it on top of the plant, some sort of barrier so the plastic's actually not touching the plant, because it'll burn.
And I wanted to just come over here real quick and just kind of show. She was talking talking about putting the pine straw or some sort of this is like a blanket you put down here to protect things, huh?
Yeah, and so your roots are right underneath here, and what this is doing is just keeping the frost from actually ever touching those roots. So if the frost does touch the roots, it just immediately burns up all of those little feeder roots, and that's just what we want to avoid. So this is like a blanket.
And you could use leaves laying around, anything like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you should, most likely, you do have a couple of leaves that have just fell from your tree. Go ahead, rake them up and put them in a pile around the base of your tree.
And we're talking about it's wintertime. Can I plant? I mean, we're getting spring's around the corner. Really hard to believe.
Yeah, I know, right? It's a huge misconception and a myth that you cannot plant in the wintertime. But we've actually been pioneering that for the past 30 years. So we actually had planted quite a few trees today. You definitely can plant, because keep in mind that all the energy for these trees are in the root system. So when we plant in the wintertime, get these guys in the ground, they're going to start focusing on rooting themselves into the ground. So when springtime comes around, you're going to have all that beautiful growth, and they're just going to be settling in perfectly fine.
Any particular kind of plants or trees that we're looking at?
Yeah, so for the wintertime, we are definitely planting a lot of evergreens, such as your magnolias, hollies, a lot of conifers, arborvitaes, and such. But granted, it's a great time for your deciduous trees, such as your Japanese maples, as well as all of your shade trees like oaks and your big maples.
Gotcha. And we're talking about watering and the deep root watering, but in the middle of the freezing cold, like we've had the past few days, you don't water then, right?
No. Everything that we're doing is going to be pre-freeze and post-freeze. So you'll do your pre-work with all the deep root watering, your moon juice, and then you'll do the post after the freeze, and it's just kind of soothing through the plant after all of the fact. So with the vitamins and the minerals in the moon juice is very helpful.
Gotcha. So it's about preparation and then afterwards. Oh, you know what? Pruning. You were talking about that, huh?
Yes, we did. So pruning is something you're going to absolutely want to avoid in this type of temperature. We really are going to do all of our hard pruning more towards February, the end of February, when temperatures are sustaining around 40 degrees to 50 degrees throughout the nighttime. And the reason why is it's too much shock for the plant to handle while it's going already through, 19 degrees at night. It would just be too much for it to handle.
So safe to say, just kind of leave it alone and just make sure you do that pre and post cold snap.
Yeah, it will be tempting because you want to trim off all the little bad parts in your garden, but definitely wait and give the plant some time to recover.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So all about taking care of the roots, huh?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's Jessica joining us here with Moon Valley Nurseries. Hope you got some good tips there to make sure your plants are protected and ready for the spring, which is, like I said, it's not that far away. Hard to believe.
It's a beautiful day out there. I know it's near freezing, but it's so nice. The plants look like they're rejoicing in this weather. I do have a question though. Yesterday, Chief Meteorologist David Chanley and I were talking about the effect of deep freezes on the agricultural community, because Georgia is so full of agriculture. And he said that these kinds of deep freezes and shock to like peach trees, all right, not Peachtree Road that we drive on, but the peach trees actually produce sweeter fruit when they go to bloom and yield fruit in the spring and summertime. Is that true?
I don't know, but I can ask Jessica here. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't asking you.
Of course. So, these cold weather, does that affect the sweetness of some of the fruit in some of the fruit trees? I know you guys have a lot of apple trees.
Yeah, so a lot of these fruits, like stone fruits and such, actually need the cold weather to produce fruit. So they enjoy this type of freeze. Will it affect the sweetness? Typically the way you control sweetness is by the way that you're feeding your tree, consistent watering, and sometimes the stress, just like with humans, can help us grow and create beautiful things. The same concept is is with fruit trees. It is not necessarily the cause of the sweetness of the fruit, but it certainly can help.
Jessica's a wealth of knowledge here, so yeah, fire away.
Yeah, well, one more for you, and then we'll let you go. But
sure, is
there a good sort of, I've always, I get my grass treated by, I forget what company, True Green or Weed Pro, one of those fertilization companies, but I wondered if there was like a good all-around general fertilizer, and what is it? I know they go by like 3 numbers, 10, 10, 10 or 10, 20, 30, that we can use to fertilize the vegetation around the rest of our property.
The grass, absolutely. So, question about grass. Does some of these same things apply with grass?
The question's not about grass. It's about the rest of the vegetation around the property. I got my grass under control.
Oh, a fertilizer for the rest of your vegetation is what you're asking about. Yeah. So, for fertilizers for the rest of the vegetation, any advice and tips on that?
So for fertilizer, we want to use something really low in nitrogen. So we just need to be careful and make sure we are lightly fertilizing. We have a really good overall fertilizer. It's called our Moon Dust, and then we also have our Moon Boost. So Moon Boost is actually what we're going to be using for our dormant season. It's very low in all of its numbers, and it's not going to stress the plant out. So it's very helpful, but I'm really going to highly recommend that the most important thing that you are doing is going to be a root stimulant as well as a de-stressor. This does have a variety of minerals and vitamins in there that are super helpful for the plant. And the Moon Boost, we do pair with it, but we do that just once a month. This is going to be something that you can kind of use when any type of stressful event is about to happen for the plants.
Gotcha. And those fertilizer numbers, low numbers.
Low numbers, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Good stuff, guys. Chris Rosenthal, Jessica, thank you very much. We're all concerned about our gardens, our grass, and our vegetation, and protecting them, and when the best time is to plant that vegetation as we knock on the door of spring. Guys, thanks. Want to shift gear now and talk about the winter weather that has impacted us so severely over the past 3 or 4 days now. Georgia Power reporting that they have restored electricity to over 214,000 customers following the destructive weekend ice storm. Roughly 10,000 customers remain without power, however, with 80% of those outages located up in northeast Georgia. Most residents in the hardest hit areas should have their power restored within the next couple of days. The multi-day storm brought a destructive mix of high winds, freezing rain, and snow, leading Governor Brian Kemp to issue a state of emergency. At the height of the storm, approximately 215,000 customers lost power. Utility officials said that they had about 10,000 personnel staged throughout the state over the weekend. And although the storm has now passed, crews are now battling severe cold temperatures as they work around the clock. The most significant damage is concentrated up in the northeast corner of Georgia, including Cleveland and Cordelia. Kent noted that of the 10,000 remaining outages statewide, about 8,000 are located in that northeast region. Habersham County among the hardest hit areas and is still cleaning up after the storm barreled through. Freezing rain, high winds pounded the region, toppling trees, tearing down power lines and leaving many roads impassable, and thousands of people without power there. Officials said that ice and winds toppled as many as 1,000 trees in the county. The interim director of the Habersham County 911 and Emergency Management said that the damage was every bit as bad as the county expected. The north end of the county was hit extremely hard, according to the Habersham County 911 director. Icy streets, brutal cold, giving county crews all they could handle up there. Thousands of customers lost power after that unforgiving storm blasted Georgia, setting its sights on the northeastern part of the county. Let's get you up to what's happening in Minneapolis and the situation up there. It is quite a situation, and so because of that, folks here in Atlanta are protesting outside Senator John Ossoff's office, asking him to vote against legislation to fund ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. So they've staged these demonstrations outside the office of both Ossoff and Warnock. They want them to block $10 billion in ICE funding until civil liberties protections are added. About 24 protesters gathered there in front of their offices at the 17th Street Bridge near Atlantic Station yesterday to call on Ossoff to act in the wake of the death of 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Preeti in Minnesota. So back up to Minneapolis and the immigration crackdown there. We understand now that it is expecting to be easing up there after President Trump spoke with both the governor of the state and the city of Minneapolis's mayor. The president sending Tom Homan up there to try to de-escalate the situation. The decision to scale back operations in Minnesota came after phone calls yesterday. The president now willing to back off if he gets more cooperation on rounding up illegal immigrants accused of other crimes. Tom Homan now, as I said, being sent to Minnesota to take over the federal response efforts there. Let's listen to Caroline Levitt talk about that this morning.
Why President Trump spoke with Governor Walz directly this morning. President Trump's hope and wish and demand for the resistance and chaos to end today.
All right, so that Caroline Levitt, the White House spokesperson, talking about the president's wishes as they try to move forward with what's happening up there and try to de-escalate the situation after the deaths of those two protesters. I want to take you live. We are waiting for President Trump to speak any moment now. This is being billed as a economic speech, but he will undoubtedly be touching on the situation in Minnesota. The president touting his economic successes, of which there are many. 2026 projected to be a pretty fruitful year in terms of the economy, which is a good thing. We all like the sound of that. What's happening in Minnesota and specifically Minneapolis, not so much. So we'll be waiting on the president's remarks. As soon as he approaches the podium, we will bring you to the president's speech. We'll be right back. Well, here's someone I haven't seen in a couple of days. Meteorologist Jonathan Stacy. We spent a lot of time together last weekend.
It was a long weekend, and it's a pretty quiet week weather-wise, so everybody can just take a little bit of a weather nap and wake up on Thursday, because that should be a nap with a quilt or a blanket or a comforter or duvet, whatever you like to cover up with and cozy up with, because the cold air is not trying to depart. In fact, another cold front is moving across the Ohio River Valley and the Great Lakes as we speak, and that will open up the door to another round of polar air moving into our area. If this wasn't cold enough, take a look. We're at 41 degrees, but it could be worse for our neighbors or our distant neighbors up across the northern Great Plains. Going into the Great Lakes states, they're dealing with single digits and below zero temperatures. These are actual air temperatures, not wind chills. Meanwhile, here at home, most have found their way out of the 40s, Rome, Covington, while others are still trying to figure out if they can make it to 40. I doubt it's going to happen. It's almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You made it out of freezing, though, there in Gainesville at 34 degrees, 39 in Dalton, 36 in Blairsville. In terms of the wind chill, those are all below freezing, if you will. This is a measure of how the air feels to your skin, and it does not feel so friendly. Quite frigid out there. And tonight the temperatures will take another downturn, and we will spend our waking hours once more in the 20s. As the winds continue to blow in out of the west, they won't exactly go to sleep at any point in time. Gusts could still top out near 20 miles an hour. That's the remainder of today and the day tomorrow. So for tonight, we'll call it quits with a low temperature of 25 degrees. That's how you wake up on a Wednesday morning. The average low for this time of the year is 36 degrees, so we're still about 11 degrees away from where we should be. So bundle up once more tomorrow. Nothing falling from the sky. There will be plenty of sunshine, and while clouds have been hard to come by today, not so much tomorrow. You'll notice more clouds in the sky. Temperatures by afternoon reaching the mid-40s. 45 to be exact. Let's take a look at the skies here. Not exactly across the west is what I wanted to look at, but I wanted to show you what could potentially be an opportunity for some winter weather on Saturday. We're starting to look closely at the modeling there, and there is the suggestion that we could end up with kind of a side-swiping storm. I went coastal there, but let's go back to our other coast here. And I want to show you what the timeline looks like. Let's do this here, okay? So this is Thursday. I think the clock is going backwards. Sometimes these clocks get confused. Okay, let's make sure we got this on point here, okay? Today is the 20, what's today, Tom?
Today is the 27th.
27th, yep, I wanted to start on Tuesday. Let's see what we got here. This model's not going all the way out. I think our models are kind of crazy.
Saturday?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get it to go here to Saturday. Let's see if we got it. Nope, it's not going there. But you can see that there's opportunity for some winter weather. We'll have to fine tune that for the next hour, but there's an opportunity for some winter weather come Saturday. Maybe I'll take the chance up to 30%. Probably not. It would be a side swipe, mainly for those of you in eastern Georgia. It's really for the Carolinas that they're expecting another run-in with winter. I will say this. Unfortunately, the areas that were hit by some thicker ice than us here in the metro, especially for our neighbors to the west, they are the same area that's under the threat for potential winter weather, not in the way of ice or freezing rain, but in the way of snow this weekend. So all eyes will be on Gainesville and Athens once again in those South Carolina border counties.
So the northeastern folks may be subject to winter weather.
Once more. Now,
again, not ice, snow?
Just snow. This is a full-out snow. And how you can tell that is Friday, you can see temperatures will go down from a high of 43 degrees to 19 degrees. And so by Saturday afternoon, we don't even hit 33 degrees. So we stay below freezing for more than 24 hours. So the profile of the atmosphere will be supportive in terms of temperatures for moisture that comes by way of snow rather than any other precip type. So we'll see how it all pans out. There is the opportunity there. It's just the proximity of the ingredients, not having the ingredients.
So would this be limited to that area, or will like Metro Atlanta maybe see some snowflakes too.
It's too early to say, but there have been some models. I really wish my model would work over here. Sometimes they just have a mind of their own, because I think it would do a really beautiful job. Somehow, one of my colleagues set it to go all the way out here to California. Why would we ever want to look at weather out there?
Isn't that where it's coming from, or is this the Gulf moisture stuff?
This is Gulf stuff. You know, the Gulf is all in play when we get to winter weather. It's really hard to snow because generally we're on the warmer side of it. So the temperatures just aren't there. So if it's 6 p.m., let's see if we can stop the clock here. Aha, I see why it's not working.
You're back in 25.
It's all the way on November. Who set this stuff? They're crazy. It's not me. Okay, so this is Friday. A little bit of a shower chance. I don't know how much I'm buying that. But this is Saturday here. Take a look.
Yeah.
So you want to know if the Atlanta metro area is in the picture?
Not so much.
Not exactly. There's some modeling that's suggesting that we could maybe pick up on a little something.
Same kind of like horseshoe area, though.
I know, right?
But a little further east.
You're right. Yeah, it's very interesting how it's the same area.
Is that another wedge, so to speak?
This won't be so much of a wedge.
I learned a lot from this last storm.
I know. That was a whole classroom. That was a semester of meteorology in a week. It reaches out to Augusta. I think this should be a pretty good opportunity, especially for central South Carolina and central North Carolina. Look at that.
Yeah, to pick up some snow, right?
Yeah.
Definitely the mid-Atlantic coast.
Yeah, it's a weekend ordeal too. So it's been the weekends. This would be the third weekend in which we have some form of winter precipitation in the forecast. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But
well, you know,
I already had someone email me for an event that I'm working with them on. And they were like, "Should we cancel or postpone or reschedule?" I said it's too early to make that call.
Yeah.
Now, if we get out here Friday and we got snow maybe in Rome or 75, the metro is in conversation. But you know, this is all about 20 miles to the north, 20 miles to the east. It can make the difference between you receiving sunshine and nothing at all, or being blanketed with white stuff.
Well, I'm not one to like pay compliment. You know, this is our job. We do what we do. I'm not a big payer of compliments on the air, because that'd be like, you know, going to the doctor and saying, "Gee, you're doing a great job, doc." I mean, that's what you go to him for, right?
Expectation, right?
But that's why people come to us. And I did want to say on the record that you guys did such an extraordinary job walking us through hour by hour, minute by minute, putting the information out on the platform so that we can easily access it, and just, you know, getting people ready for what could have been, you know, at least in some of the more southern areas, a far worse type of situation.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I will say this to end it. I tried to use a metaphor last week that was about elections. And I was not trying to politicize the weather at all.
No,
but
I get it.
Think about it as election day. The polls are like models, and they'll have you looking in one direction, and they will be trending in different directions, and different polls will say different things. The same sort of biases that are in polls politically are the same sort of biases that happen in our weather modeling. And then you will get to the day of the event, and there are some things that you cannot ascertain. The mind of a voter is for that moment in which they cast the ballot.
Right.
It does not take into context what they were thinking the week before.
No.
It is that day and that location, and some things you really can't pick up on until you get the actual results. And that's exactly the way the system
There's always those margins, right?
Exactly.
It's like the...
those are the things that you cannot ascertain before something happens.
It's like the hurricane cone. They give themselves plenty of margin for that hurricane to go, you know, any which direction.
So they can have a little runaway area.
Yeah. Jonathan, thanks.
Always good.
Okay. I want to talk about tariffs again. The president is threatening tariffs on Canada following some proposed trade deals with China that Canada wants to enter into. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said that he's concerned about the U.S. as a trading partner, and it's not a full agreement with China, but it has the president's attention. In a social media post, the president saying, quote, "If Governor Carney," calls him governor, not prime minister, because he thinks Canada should be a U.S. state. So he calls him Governor Carney, thinks he's going to make Canada a drop-off port for China, to send goods and products into the United States, he's sorely mistaken. The president threatening a 100% tariff on Canadian goods, something Canada is watching closely. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, saying that he doesn't know what the Canadian Prime Minister's end game here is ahead of renegotiating a huge trade agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, but warns China will destroy Canada from within. Well, first Canada and now South Korea. The tariff threats keep coming as President Trump's trade war intensifies once again. A day after threatening Canada with that 100% tariff, President Trump announced that he's raising tariffs on South Korea to 25%, writing on social media, quote, South Korea's legislature is not living up to its deal with the United States. Last year, Seoul agreed to invest $350 billion in the U.S. in exchange for tariff relief, but lawmakers still have to approve the deal, and the White House claims that they're dragging their feet in doing so. The head of NATO says that there is still no agreement on that wish by the president to acquire Greenland. When the president went over for Davos, the meeting of economic CEOs and powerhouses up in Davos, Switzerland, a couple weeks ago, he met with the NATO Secretary General. Mark Rutte says there are now, quote, 2 work streams taking place. The first is focused on NATO taking a leading role in Arctic security, but he says other work streams must be negotiated by Denmark, Greenland, and the United States together. So that is yet to be seen. Denmark, which controls Greenland, says that it never agreed to U.S. sovereignty over the island. European leaders are standing behind the Danes for now, while also acknowledging Europe needs the United States. We're getting more information on that deadly plane crash in Washington, D.C., the one that happened right outside Reagan National Airport in the dead of night when a military helicopter collided with an American Airlines plane. The incident taking place last January near Reagan Airport. 67 people died. It was the deadliest plane crash in the country in more than 2 decades. The National Transportation Safety Board offered their condolences to the relatives of the victims. They also say that the incident was a result of systemic issues and it was not caused by just one organization or person. Listen.
Thank you, Chair. Today is a heavy day, and I do not think that is lost on any of us. This has been an incredibly difficult year for our agency and our investigators, the first responders to this accident, and the aviation community as a whole as we have mourned the loss of 67 lives nearly 1 year ago from an accident and tragedy that never, ever should have happened.
It will not be an easy day. I think, as Mike just said, there is no singular person to blame for this. These were systemic issues across multiple organizations, and I think, as you'll see, we will place a lot of the information that you're going to hear on those responsible organizations and hopefully make recommendations so that this never happens again.
You are in our daily prayers. I pray for you every single day. And on behalf of everyone at the NTSB, our entire agency, please accept our heartfelt condolences and our deepest, deepest sympathies.
All right, that from the hearing among members of the National Transportation Safety Board surrounding the deadly collision of that Army helicopter and the American Airlines small jet, which was making its final approach into Reagan National Airport about a year ago. Hard to believe it has been so long, but they are advancing that investigation, obviously offering condolences to family members of all of those who were involved. All right, it is coming up on the conclusion of January here. The Georgia State Legislature moving full throttle on legislative items for the new year. We're going to check with our legislative and state government expert, Deidre Dukes, when we continue here. Welcome back, everybody. We're keeping you up to date here in the 3 p.m. streaming hour on Fox Local. Appreciate you streaming with us through the Fox Local app on your mobile device or on your home TV. YouTube, we're on Fox 5 Atlanta and TikTok as well. Other social media channels, we are always streaming live. Plus on the radio, 107.9 HD2 FM. We're glad you're listening to us this afternoon. You know, across the nation, local municipalities are dealing with the inevitability of these giant data centers moving in. Some municipalities are okay with that. Others are not. They say it's going to be a drag on the power grid. The president announcing plans to have these data centers come up with their own power sources and then using the leftovers to push back into the grid. So how all of that is going to happen is still being sort of debated and worked out on the state level as well. And our Deidre Dukes is inside the state capitol with this new year and new legislative agenda moving forward, Deidre.
That's right. There was some effort last session to regulate the growth of data centers here in Georgia, and just not only how they grow, how many we allow in the state, but also taking a look at how they're regulated, addressing some of the concerns that community residents and others have, because those who are supporters of the data centers, they talk about just how much revenue data centers, tax revenue, they generate for various municipalities, and especially those who really need that money, right? But then you hear from a lot of residents who are concerned about what exactly that looks like, how it's impacting their environment, water usage and electricity, their power bills, Tom. So there's a lot that goes into this. And so you really have a bipartisan effort here under the Gold Dome this legislative session to try to address some of those concerns. And really the bills that we're seeing introduced this session and some carried over from last session really run the gamut. We've seen bills that are calling for more transparency when it comes to these data centers moving in. You know, before they would be allowed to be built, be constructed, people would have the opportunity to learn how much water will they be drawing there in the community and how much power would actually be used. And so that's one thing that's being looked at here. Another piece of legislation right now that is being considered, a bill that was recently introduced, is a bill calling for a moratorium on data centers for 1 year. And the lawmaker who's sponsoring that legislation says, look, it will give the state an opportunity, local cities and counties, to really take a look at how these data centers are impacting us, not just now, because we do have some that have already been built, of course, here in the state, but in the long term. So that's something that's being looked at right now. And something else that's being considered is a bill that's being looked at right now that would require these data centers to cover the costs, any costs as far as any power usage, anything of that nature, to ensure that we as consumers will not be carrying any of that cost. It would be guaranteed, I guess you could say, that the data centers who are putting this, demand on our system, that they would have to cover all of that cost. So we talked to two lawmakers, or actually talked to several lawmakers today, but the two that you're going to hear from now is a lawmaker who is sponsoring the legislation requiring the data centers to actually cover all the costs of their electricity usage, and also hear from a lawmaker who wants a temporary moratorium placed on any future data center growth here in Georgia while we figure out exactly the long-term impact. Here's what they had to say.
To give our state an opportunity to pause for a moment and wrap our arms around all of these data centers that have come to multiple parts of our state. The goal is for us to take a breather before we permanently alter the landscape of our entire state.
SB 34 simply says that all electricity costs caused by a data center being built, whether it's in construction, transmission, energy, fuel, anything, that they would have to pay all of their costs, that this wouldn't be put on our consumers. Our consumers have had 6 rate increases in recent times, and a lot of that is caused because of data centers, in my opinion, and they need some protection.
So state lawmakers, they've heard from their constituents. We've seen even in local cities and counties, just here in the metro area, where we have local legislators responding to the concerns expressed by their residents. You know, what's going on with these data centers? We're concerned about how they're impacting our quality of life. And so we're seeing it here, Tom, even at the state level. They're working to try to address some of those concerns and come up with something that everyone can be at least somewhat happy with in the long run.
Complex issue, one that we've yet to be trained on how to think about, because AI and data centers are such both new phenomena. My only, sort of takeaway and concern is about this moratorium and time to flesh out and consider the data center's effect on these local municipalities. And I do get that, but I just wonder sort of out loud, it seems to me like AI is one big race, right? And it's a race to find and determine who can come up with AI the fastest. Is it going to be us? Is it going to be China? Or is it going to be somewhere else? And the longer we sort of, I hate this phrase, but kick this can down the road, the longer we give somebody else the opportunity to leapfrog us and take over in the AI race. Maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's just something that sort of I was thinking about during your report and the comments of that one state representative.
And actually, you raise a great point. We posed that question to the CEO of the Georgia Chamber of Commerce as the legislative session got underway, because we were asking him specifically about the lawmaker who was dropping the bill regarding the one-year moratorium, if that was something he would support. And he said absolutely not, expressing some of the concerns that you have as far as the impact that would have on economic growth here in the state of Georgia. And, as as proponents will say, there are a lot of great opportunities coming our way in regards to data centers and that money. You don't want to miss out on that. At the same time, hearing from the other side, you really want to do your due diligence and be as responsible as you can, because, you have people who've lived in these communities for decades, for generations in some instances, and you really don't want to make a decision today that could have negative, long-lasting impacts on people in their respective communities.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's something that a rush to judgment on wouldn't benefit anyone. It's helpful to know all of the implications of putting these giant data centers in somebody's backyard, and what kind of effects, environmental and power-wise and through the water. I mean, there's so many multifaceted things you have to think about. So it's something that these lawmakers are going to have to consider as they move forward, and something we'll see pop up, no doubt, as we run through this legislative year. Deidre Dukes covering all angles of it for us this afternoon. Deidre, thanks. Boy, we haven't shaken this winter storm quite yet, at least in some communities, because some schools have announced yet closing once again for Wednesday. So if you have children in these counties, listen up. We're talking about Banks County, Franklin County, Habersham County, Stevens County, and White County. Do that once again so that you got it. Banks County, Franklin County, where staff in Franklin, by the way, are expected to report at 10 a.m. Habersham County, Stevens County, and White County. Delayed is Oconee County by 2 hours. So if you're out in Oconee, you show up to school 2 hours later than you normally would. When we come back, Falcons have a new coach. He has kind of a mixed record. The question is, can he improve on that performance once he comes to Atlanta? Our Kelly Price is waiting in the wings to tell us when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. Tom Haines along with Fox 5 Sports' Kelly Price to talk about all things Falcons and our brand new head coach, Kevin Stefanski, coming from the Cleveland Browns. Kelly, I told you I was kind of cramming up on him before we came on the air. Not a fantastic record with the Cleveland Browns, kind of mixed, more losses than wins, and we're hoping he can improve on that record when he comes to Atlanta. But what makes this organization believe in him and think that he can do that?
Yeah, that's actually the first question I had for him at this press conference was, what did you learn from that experience, and why is this going to be different? Because if Falcons fans and anyone who's really been following along have noticed, he's kind of running back a lot of the same staff that he had in Cleveland here in Atlanta. There are some different pieces. Obviously, Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, is staying on here for the Falcons, but a lot of the same guys and cast and characters that he had in Cleveland are coming here to Atlanta with him. So why is this going to be different? He said, I feel like I've learned from my experiences. I spent 20 years in the NFL beyond being a head coach the last couple of years of the Browns. And here's some of his answer when he talked about what he has learned.
Career in this business, it's sometimes you have to navigate tough times, and I certainly have seen my tough times, and I feel like I'm a better coach on the other side of that. And I, like Matt mentioned, I want to learn from all those things. I hope that there's things that I learned on a day-to-day basis. I hope there's big picture things that I've learned and taken from that. So really excited about where I am, but I wouldn't change anything about the past. I've learned from all of my seasons in this game of football, if you will. Something I've told Matt, there's a quote I love where smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. And I think it's something that's important, as all of us understand. Some of those tough moments are going to make us better. I'm so excited about what we're doing at the Atlanta Falcons in 2026 and what we're going to be about.
Great. Yeah, I love it.
So 45-56, obviously the overall record in Cleveland. He was fired there a couple weeks ago, but this was a guy that was on every coaching kind of short list for all the openings across the NFL. So it wasn't just the Falcons who were really interested in bringing him in. They pulled the trigger quickly so that they were able to bring him in. And he also orchestrated a bit of a turnaround in his first season specifically in Cleveland.
I remember that. He took over and they kind of had some sparkle.
They did. They made the playoffs. He also was a two-time Coach of the Year there in Cleveland. So there was some good mixed with the bad. And he said that you succeed because of the people around you. And that's what he learned in that short turnaround. He's hoping to do it here in Atlanta.
Well, with the Falcons, he takes over a team that has had 8 straight losing seasons. I was reading up on him a little bit, and it was interesting, the interviewing process. The Falcons actually dug in deeper and interviewed a lot of people around him, including players, to ask about his style. And they felt like all of the metrics added up where he would be a good fit for this team. So it's more than just how many games have you won. It's about temperament, players, and all kinds of things.
Right, and it's kind of like any job interview, right? You look at the resume, you call the references, and you feel good maybe about the interview. Everyone in the room like, okay, we really liked that guy. So they cross-reference those things as well.
All right, hoping it works out for Kevin Stefanski, the new head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Kelly, thanks. And thank you for joining us for the 3 p.m. streaming hour. I'm Tom Haines. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.